All right. Why should we think? Look, if you have a regime that is blatantly trampling on the Constitution, you have all these people like Giuliani and stuff saying that they're not even going to cooperate with the subpoenas. They're not going to show up in court. If you have a situation like that, then you don't have the rule of law. What makes you think that we can just wait this out, that we can rely on the normal process when you have a president that's completely disregarding that normal process? What makes you think that we can just rely on waiting for the election like so many people have been doing? All of our people, y'all, all of our people that hate this, all of our people that thinks immigrants are human beings, all of our people that thinks women are human beings, that thinks LGBT people are human beings, that doesn't just think that America should come first, but thinks that humanity should come first. Those are the people that we gotta bring down to Union Square today at 2 p.m. So get on your phones, y'all. We gotta have the same sense of urgency that these Trump people have, that these MAGA morons have. I see one of them over here. We gotta have the same sense of urgency, the same sense of urgency, the same passion.
How we launch today matters, okay? How we launch today, whether we're big or small, our spirit, you being here, you matter, okay? In Puerto Rico, it started with 100 people, and it grew because they had right on their side and their determination. And the fact that they were right, it drew a lot of people forward. And we know that there's people who feel the same way we do, who are angry, who are anguished.
So listen, we're getting ready in just a few minutes. I want to hand over the microphone to somebody who is a long-time freedom fighter. Do I have your attention? All right, this is a long-time freedom fighter and revolutionary. This is somebody who is a co-initiator of RefuseFascism.org, the movement spearheading the Out Now movement. This is somebody who was drafted as a young man to go fight in Vietnam and kill Vietnamese people in an unjust genocidal war, and he said hell no. And he went to prison and he never backed down. He stood up against that and he never turned his back on the people of the world or the people here. He's a founding member of the Revolutionary Communist Party, and he is someone who is going to MC our program today. Please show a lot of love for Carl Dix.
All right. We here today are beginning something with historic implications. There is a fascist regime holding the reins of power in society. In the face of that, too many people are sitting on the sidelines hoping someone else takes care of it for them. We are not doing that. You are a part of not doing that. We are announcing the beginning of the Out Now movement. A movement with the message, Trump and Pence out now. 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 Now, this protest, we didn't just come out here to register that we dislike what this regime represents and stands for. We did not come for that. We came to call on others to initiate and join a process which is going to go week by week. It's going to spread nationwide. It's going to grow week by week. October 26th, November 2nd, November 9th, November 16th, and then it is on. We're not stopping after 5 weeks. We're aiming to grow and develop, bringing many more people into the streets, and to build an upsurge from below that can drive a political crisis that can force the removal of this regime. That's what this is about. That's what we're announcing, and you all are a part of that. Refuse Fascism has had a mission since it was initiated back in December of 2016, right after the election of Donald Trump. I want to bring Emma from the New York Refuse Fascism chapter up to read out the content of that mission.
Out now, nationwide protest. We demand the Trump-Pence regime must go now. Out now begins with 5 weeks of protests to launch, spread, and grow an unrelenting, nonviolent mass movement of protest that continue week after week to demand that the Trump-Pence regime must go now. From there, we will continue to grow and not stop until the Trump-Pence regime has been removed from power. We launch today in 2 cities, here in New York City and Los Angeles. Next Saturday, October 26th, we spread mass protests nationwide. The Trump-Pence regime poses a catastrophic danger to humanity. Concentration camps on the border, environmental devastation accelerated, the danger of war, even nuclear, threatened, white supremacy rules, fascist mobs, and racist mass murderers, truth in science erased. The right to abortion is near gone. The rule of law and democratic and civil rights are stripped away. This is fascism unfolding. Now impeachment has begun, a momentous move in which sharp political battle lines are drawn with high stakes. Trump himself threatens charges of treason and even invokes civil war. A virulent fascist movement sees their future bound up with the whole Trump-Pence regime. Where this ends up depends on us. This is a moment where we, people of many different views and experience, must act together in mass, sustained, nonviolent protests that continue until the Trump-Pence regime is removed from power. We begin with protests in NYC and LA on October 19th, that's today. And we are announcing 4 more consecutive Saturdays of protests in cities across the country that gather more people and momentum so that the weeks and months that follow, the movement grows to tens and hundreds of thousands and millions. What unifies all the diverse of people that need to pour into the streets is the single demand. The Trump-Pence regime must go now. For 3 years, the Democratic Party leadership facilitated the Trump-Pence regime, even voting funds for border security when children were being separated from their parents. Now, they want to restrict impeachment only to national security, and Trump's violation of democratic norms to try to enlist Ukraine to undermine U.S. elections. They have said they will not impeach on the whole array of fascist outrages. Their approach would legitimate the whole Trump-Pence fascist regime, leaving the cancer to grow in place more dangerously, especially if his Christo-fascist Vice President Mike Pence is then allowed to take the presidency. Moreover, Trump has threatened that he may not leave office. To leave things to the Democrats or wait till 2020 would be extremely dangerous. The only way, and let me say this again, the only way to stop Trump and Pence and advance every struggle for justice is by the power of the people in the streets. The world, as we have known it, is being torn asunder. We must cast off fear and passivity, and not allow our differences to stand in the way of rising together in the unprecedented, unrelenting, non-violent, out-now mass protests to drive out the Trump-Pence regime. We must seize on the impeachment crisis now erupting, taking history into our own hands and turning dread for the future as a force for hope. Puerto Rico and Hong Kong show us how. Trump, Pence, out now. And do this pledge with me. Everybody raise their fists. Do this pledge with me. In the name of humanity. 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 We refuse.
We refuse.
We refuse.
We refuse
To accept.
to accept
A fascist America.
a fascist America.
This brother really needs no introduction, but I'm giving him one anyway, because they gave me the mic. I want to bring to you Cornel West.
Let us be very clear. Let us not be deceived. We here because we love poor and working people. We here because we gonna bear witness. Is that right? Is that right? Thank you, Brother Carl Dix. It's always a blessing to be with this brother in jail, out of jail. He has been consistent over many, many decades indeed. And let us acknowledge we live in an age of catastrophe. We got escalating nuclear catastrophe. We got ecological catastrophe. We got economic catastrophe and grotesque wealth inequality. We got political catastrophe with a neo-fascist regime in the making with a disregard of rule of law. And it's not going to be just a question of milquetoast Democrats trying to constitute countervailing power. We got to have people putting power and pressure to bear. Is that right? Is that right? Now, people ask the question, why is it, Brother West, that a Christian like you would spend time with revolutionary, communist, socialist, anarchist, progressives, and I tell them, do you really know me? Love flows in a lot of different ways. We don't have to agree on everything to talk about out now. We don't have to agree about everything to talk about a coalition against those at the highest level who are using arbitrary power in order to reproduce themselves, and the masses still wrestling with levels of social misery that are spiritually obscene and morally empty. Is that right? So we need a coalition. Christians, Muslims, Buddhists, Hindus, traditional religion, agnostics, atheists. This is a question of what kind of human being you're going to be in this particular moment when the neo-fascists not just here, but they're in other parts of the world. They're in Hungary, they're in Turkey, they're in parts of Africa, they're in parts of Asia. This is a profoundly human affair, and that's why we march. That's why we come together. And it's never just a question of numbers. I come from the jazz tradition. I don't want a whole orchestra that can't play with soul and find their voices and just be an echo. I want the high quality conscious folk who are willing to bear witness and pay a cost, put their bodies on the line to be part of the movement. That's why we're here. It's always a critical slice of folk who have deep love and courage and willingness to take a risk that constitute a catalyst for the larger group, not just in this country, but around the world. And we believe, in fact, that a human being in Asia, in Africa, in Latin America, a human being in America, a baby in Palestine or Tel Aviv, a baby in Guatemala, Ethiopia, a baby in vanilla Newtown, Connecticut, or chocolate Harlem have exactly the same value. This is a matter of both morality. This is a matter of humanity. And for a revolutionary Christian like myself, it's also a matter of spirituality. It has to do with how I understand love, steadfast love, loving kindness, and taking the form of action and fusing with brothers and sisters from a variety of different traditions, different parties, different institutions. Our dear Sister Sahara, oh, you've been so magnificent. Give it up for Sister Sahara. She's been so magnificent over these years. Brother Andy's the same way. And so how many are going to march with us? We march in the streets of Manhattan. We march in the streets of the Big Apple. We're going to send a sign to this empire. We're going to send a sign to the nation that there's people who care about democracy and freedom and who oppose a neo-fascist regime, and we do it not in the spirit of self-righteousness. We learn from each other. We have a sense of humility with each other, but at the same time, we're willing to go down with each other. That's what solidarity is. Let us be in solidarity in this Out Now movement. Oh, how beautiful you look.
Not one more day should children be put in cages, separated from their parents for the crime of seeking asylum. Asylum that is caused by the devastation of the environment that is largely produced by what goes on in this country and what this country has done to their countries. Say with me, not one more day out now.
Not one more day out!
Can you take one more day?
No.
Where the environment is destroyed by this system and accelerated by what this regime has done?
No.
One more day, can you wait for one more mass murder sparked by this maniac and fascist regime in power? Mass murders of Latinos and of Jews and of black people and of LGBTQ people. Can you take one more day of that?
No!
And what about that we may only have a few more days before the right of women to control their own bodies through the right to abortion is taken away by this fascist Supreme Court and this fascist regime and a fascist Congress. The truth is shredded and discarded. Well, you just heard it from him, but we won't get distracted by the fools and the Confederate soldiers who want to revisit the Civil War on behalf of white supremacy when they say, make America great again. Now, Refuse Fascism, as Cornel West just brought forward, includes people who believe that this country can be better transformed for a force for good. Then there's people like me who would say this country has never been great and that it's a history of crimes against humanity. And we are all coming together, though, to drive out this regime which we can recognize as an existential threat to humanity and its white supremacy, patriarchal misogyny, xenophobia. The rules are being changed as to how your country is being governed with effects around the world. Make America Great is a 21st century fascist program of manifest destiny. America First, wrapped in the flag and the Bible of Mike Pence.
What did you say about the Jews? Don't be talking
This is a program of white supremacy, misogyny, and xenophobia. Is this the world you want to live in? Is this the kind of fool you want to listen to? So let's be serious about this. Let's be serious. There's one fool here, but there's 63 million people who voted for this. There's 30 million people who are a hardcore base of this. Brothers and sisters, we're talking about a serious situation. A situation that we can't be deterred from.
The Revolution Club are coming. So, people are standing with flag burning.
There you go. Now I want the rest of you to pay attention here. You see, this is another form of mass distraction, mass disruption that keeps you from thinking about what you actually do need to think about and get into. Let me ask you one more time. Is this the world that you want to live in? Then now is the time when we have to get together. We have to get together and unite across a lot of different lines, because what we face, what humanity faces, is so extreme. It is extinguishing potentially life on this planet. It will make Mad Max and the Hunger Games look like child's play.
Goodbye.
Right now,
Fascist. You're a fascist.
you have to understand
Best
something.
parties ever. 4 more
There
years.
is a movement to impeach the president to the top of society. But we cannot leave this to the people at the top of society for many of the reasons that Cornel West spoke to. The Democrats have dragged their feet for 3 years in fighting this fascism. The Democrats dragged their feet in even launching impeachment.
So you've got somebody disrupting this rally, and you're all standing on the sidelines. Why is that?
And she has also said in press conferences,
Are you going to do anything about it?
the Republicans,
That guy's disrupting this rally, a peaceful rally, freedom of assembly. You have no comment. Let's see what your
do
name
you
is.
want to live through
Okay.
another year and
Thank
a
you,
half
sir.
in a world ruled by this fascist regime? Well, then we got to get busy. Proto-fascist, sort of fascist, and all different kinds of things. But the fact is, it's fascist. And the point is, it can become too late to stop fascism.
Which is what they need to do.
Hey, wait a second here.
Get that motherfucker. Get out of here.
Whoa. Hey, wait. Mr. MAGA, wait a second. I'm going to divert from my speech. Hey.
Now you come.
Mic check, one mic up here. We came for a reason. If you came here because you want to drive out this fascist regime, turn your face to the stage. If you came here and you refuse to be diverted by one puny, ugly manifestation threatened by this regime, and we are listening to Andy Z. He is a founder of this movement. He's a strategic thinker in this movement, and I will tell you, in dangerous times, it's not enough to hate what's happening. Millions and millions hate what's happening, but it keeps getting worse. You need strategic thinkers, you need leaders, and we need to hear them, and we need to know what this movement is about. So I want everybody to turn your face towards the stage. Keep your face and your ears glued to this man you are listening to. It is valuable, and we're going to learn how to work together and not be deterred. I'm going to give it back to Andy Z. Show him some love.
Now we can take advantage of this situation. There's a bit of a learning moment here. It's true that this is just one MAGA person.
Yes.
But there is more behind this. This is the seriousness of the movement that's beginning today, where we are launching this movement to drive out this regime. This is not the easiest road, but it is the necessary road. There may be one disruptor here today, but if you watch the rally in Dallas that Trump held, if you watch the rally in Minneapolis, if you know and care about the fact that there are black people being gunned down and have been gunned down before this administration, but are being gunned down, and then you saw Donald Trump standing there in Minneapolis and saying, the cops love Trump, and Trump loves the cops. A straight up advocacy of white supremacy and the kind of future that is offered to the people in this country and to the immigrants. Listen to the language he says, and listen to the fact that there is a social base for this. We are in the middle of a political crisis of epic dimensions. It says in our call that the world that you have known is being torn asunder. It is not, and it cannot go back to what was yesterday in the New York Times. There were 2 letters. This is on the online edition responding, I believe, to the Admiral. And one woman asked, will I be able to go back to my former quality of life when Trump is gone? When will it be gone? I don't like waking up every morning with this. And 2 letters below that, somebody wrote, I often wondered how the good people of Germany let that happen. You should let that sink in, because these people are serious. The people behind Donald Trump, Steve Bannon, Rudy Giuliani, they've all said, for this fascist regime, this is their last chance. Decades in the making. They have built up a Christian fascist movement. This does not mean all Christians, but there is a Christian fascist movement in this country that's all the way up to the military, and they want to change the rules of the game. They want to actually establish a theocracy. If you don't believe me, read the Attorney General Barr's speech at Notre Dame, where he laid it out straight up. This should be the actual ultimate determinant of law. What's in the Bible taken literally, which is a horror for humanity. Christians like Cornel West do not take the Bible literally. But this is real. This is not something that rhetoric to gin you all up and go out and raise your fist. This is a real thing. There's millions of people who are organized behind a fascist movement, and on top of that, there's very powerful people in the ruling class of this country who are supporting this. It's not just Donald Trump. But here's the problem we face. The poet W.B. Yeats said after, we're going to tell you what to do about it, brother, just calm down. W.B. Yeats said at the end of World War I that the best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. And this too much describes the people in this country. And this is not to denigrate the people who are out there fighting around the various effects of this regime. There's a lot of heroic people. People have been run over by cars. People have been arrested. People have occupied offices. But that is necessary, but it is insufficient, because each of these struggles will be washed over by this regime should it succeed in power. Now, this impeachment opens up a constitutional crisis, which means that people are raising their heads and say, well, maybe we can do something about it. But this is a fight at the top of society. It requires you to see that there's a good ending to this, that the interests of humanity are in here. Nancy Pelosi is impeaching only on the grounds of national security and emoluments. I actually could pronounce it this time. That's progress, folks. But look, she's leaving the whole fascist agenda intact. And if that happens, if he even is impeached in the House of Representatives, that will leave a legitimation of the agenda and will reduce this to an election issue, one that they have told you already they want to make secondary to economic incentives and things like that, which are important needs that people have, but it's nothing but bribery to keep your eyes off the prize of what really has to be done right now. So, we can't just do this based on the people on top. It has to be a groundswell from below. That's what you're out here doing today. And it's not just a matter of each one of us convincing one. It's a matter of understanding that we're working on a stage where there's a great deal of crisis, that people are increasingly raising their heads and opening their eyes. And they have to see a movement out there that starts with thousands today and tens of thousands within a few weeks, that grows to the point where we will not relent on this. And let me say something about your power. You might ask yourself the question, well, why won't the Democrats fight about this? The revolutionary leader Bob Avakian, whose work I promote and who follow his leadership, has said there's 3 fears that the Democrats have. 1, they're afraid of Trump and what he might do. 2, they're afraid of his social base unleashed. Imagine if you were in a room with 60,000 people like that idiot who was here before. White supremacists. But the 3rd fear they have is of you. And that's the important fear. What did you say, Cornell over lunch? He said they look at you and they say, oh, those people out there, they might have pitchforks. Okay, but what that metaphor means is that the very people who they represent, the people, the black people of this country, the immigrants, the women, every white person of conscience, people concerned, the students, about the environment, that if those people raise their heads against Trump, they might start asking some bigger questions. They might get out of control and say, hey, we actually do care about our immigrant brothers and sisters. And after all, as the New York Times put it, every president has to be the deporter-in-chief, and certainly Obama fit that role. So we have to put our interest in the game. And that means we have to put stuff on the line. We're not asking you to be out here just today. Not just next Saturday, not just 5 Saturdays from now. We're talking about a movement that does learn from Puerto Rico and Hong Kong, that stays until our demand is won. We are out to create, there is a political crisis, but we are out to create a political crisis from below. A crisis of such scale, of nonviolent protests of masses of people in cities and towns across the country that doesn't stop until our demand is won. And what is our demand? The Trump-Pence regime out now! The Trump-Pence regime out now!
Hey, you guys. I might run out of space, but I'll delete some things and get back on.
But how are we going to do this? Why is this going to make a difference? Why it's going to make a difference is because when you have that kind of movement, which I see some of you out here might remember or have seen or experienced the late 60s and early 70s, but many of you have never been in a society when it's completely convulsed. When you have millions of people out every day, night after night, day after day, in cities and towns across the country, how do you think that looks around the world? The legitimacy of the whole thing comes in question, and those people up top who right now are trying to brush this under the rug can be compelled to not only impeach Trump, but Pence and Barr and DeVos and the whole damn crew of them, and create the kind of initiative where we can go forward and struggle for the kind of world that we would want. And through this struggle, we will have the opportunity to argue with each other, to debate what kind of world do we want, bringing together all the different people, I won't repeat them since Cornell did it so beautifully before, of different persuasions, different faiths, different political views, coming together to demand this. Okay, but people, I have one more thing I want to tell you. This is not going to be easy. We're going to encounter people like that. We're going to encounter the authorities. You imagine, we have a permit today for this march. But we're going to go in for a permit tomorrow to march every week and then every day. At a certain point, it's not going to be a matter of permits. It's only going to be the masses of people that's going to make this possible. And we have to get to the point where this isn't anybody's thing. Refuse Fascism is taking this responsibility. But we have to get to the point where people are saying, I'm fighting to save the planet. And because of that, I demand the Trump-Pence regime must go. I'm fighting for the right to abortion, and because of that, the Trump-Pence regime must go. I'm fighting because black lives do matter, and these people don't recognize that. That's why I say the Trump-Pence regime must go. And then we go on from there. Now listen, the people will try to divide you. Not only the fascists, but other people try to divide you. So, don't you know that that's communist? Yes, I'm a revolutionary communist, as is Sansara and Carl. But let me say this. Why are we in this movement? Because Avakian has been working on the question of fascism in this country for decades. He's developed an analysis of this. I recommend you check it out. But we mean what we say, and we say what we mean. We are in this movement for what it's about, which is that the Trump-Pence regime must go. We'll advocate for our positions, and we think that people who believe in this system or believe this system can be reformed, people who are, working. Brother Cornell is out there stumping for Bernie, but we're standing shoulder to shoulder here because we both recognize that this is a fascist regime and it must go. In addition to this, don't let people divide you on the basis of good protesters and bad protesters. They will say that out now that's Antifa and Antifa is bad. Well, first of all, anybody fighting fascism isn't bad in my book. We may have different tactics, we may have different analyses, but there's a world of difference between somebody fighting a white supremacist, misogynist fascism and somebody who's advocating for that. And don't let yourselves be divided. There's other people who said, but if you do this and you actually succeed in your plan, they might declare martial law. Well, I can't rule that out. There's no promises we can make that this is going to be painless, that they won't try to repress it. I can't tell you not to have any fear, but I can tell you how to overcome fear. And the way to overcome fear is by acting together with others on the basis of the principles and in the interests of humanity. And then you can overcome fear. And there's never been a change anywhere, any place in the world where people haven't had to overcome that fear. And the biggest fear that we have, the biggest fear that's in my heart, is that people won't stand up in the numbers that are necessary. That's the biggest fear that you should have. And that's the struggle you should be waging with your friends, your neighbors, your college classmates, your students in your high schools, your religious community. The biggest thing we have to fear is that people won't, on our side of this divide of this Trump-Pence regime, be filled with the same passionate intensity, not in content, but in fury and passion as they are. So look, I'm going to wrap up here and say to you that we can do no less than take history in our hands and turn dread for the future into a force for a much better future. And we are asking you as a first step, it is just a first step, to commit to the next 4 Saturdays to launch this Out Now movement. But more, I'm asking you, as Emma said before, to pledge that we will not stand aside while there is still a chance to stop this regime that imperils humanity and the earth itself. And to stand together with courage and conviction and overcome fear and uncertainty, and to struggle with all we've got. Now let me hear from you. The Trump-Pence regime must go. The Trump-Pence regime must go. And pledge that in the name of humanity, we refuse to accept a fascist America. So join with us. Open your hearts, open your minds, and put your bodies on the street. And let's bring these people together and drive this regime from power. Thank you.
I want to bring up a couple more special people. People who have been fighting for justice for quite some time. People whose loved ones were stolen from them by those who were sworn to protect and serve. In other words, the murdering, brutalizing NYPD and other police departments. I want to bring them up now. We're going to start with Juanita Young, the mother of Malcolm Ferguson.
Now think about it. Oh, good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, everybody. It's that time again when we have to come out here and do what we need to do. And that's drive out this Trump and Pence. When we live in a system the way we are today, we get no justice. We get nowhere. When the police murdered my son, Malcolm Ferguson, in 2000, they did nothing. The cops are still working out here. This is a national epidemic that we face by this system because of people like Trump. If we could only stand together and say enough is enough and bring out those that don't care, that cause the problem. I'm saying to all of y'all, drive out the Trump regime. On October 22nd, Tuesday, we're going to have a national day of protest. And we are going to be right here at 2 o'clock. We asking all of y'all to come and support October 22nd, National Day of Protest. Because this is still the same fight that we're doing today continues on Tuesday. The only problem is, bring out the numbers. Stop letting these police think they rule us. Stop letting parents be separated from their children. That is a damn shame that man could come out and separate these kids from their parents. And nobody has done anything. Because those kids are dying. They're suffering. And where are they? Right here. Right here where we live. Why are we allowing them to do this to our children? They could have been any one of ours. I'm saying, Trump gotta go. Trump gotta go. Thank you.
Next, I want to bring up Hawa Ba, the mother of Muhammad Ba, who was murdered by the NYPD. Hawa has been fighting for justice for her son Muhammad and for all of the victims of the murdering, brutalizing NYPD.
My little brother is Junior.
Good afternoon, New Yorkers. Good afternoon, I can hear you.
Good afternoon.
I'm standing in solidarity with you people. The Trump regime got to go. I'm the mother of Mohammed Ba. I bury my 28 college student in his own home. Salat in his own home with discrimination. My son Mohammed Ba was an honor student. He never committed a crime in his life. He just sick. I called an ambulance because of racism, of discrimination. They killed my son. I asked them why. They said this is the system. If any system be like that, that system must go. I don't want nobody to feel as I feel. I will never be the same in my life. Me and my family will never be the same. Mohammed was born and raised in West Africa. I bring him here to get a better life. They kill him and they cover up and never have a justice up to now. Nobody got to live the life I live today. Justice is what? Indict, convict, hold the killer cop, a cannibal for murdering innocent people. New Yorkers got to feel free. Black life matter. Our life matter. Mohammed Ba life matter. I'm speaking for everyone, not just for Mohammed. We don't want to bury another black child as Mohammed buries in Harlem. I'm sick and tired. I'm sick and tired seeing every day black and brown child is just murdering in America for no reason. Every way. They never held them accountable. We want the equal justice and never talk about the NYPD, the good one who protects, serve and protects. But the racists, they have to hold them accountable, and the racist reason must go. Thank you.
Okay, I want to bring up the mother of Justin Smith, who was murdered by police in Oklahoma. I give you Andre Smith.
Thank you, Carl. All of our sons and daughters and husbands and wives and brothers and cousins who've been murdered by this racist regime, there's going to be redemption, because people get ready, because the revolution's coming.
Okay, we just about ready to march. We got one more speaker. I want to recognize somebody who's out there in the crowd, and that's Herb Boyd. He calls himself a AAA man, an activist, an academic, and an author. I had to shout out Herb. Now I want to bring up a last speaker before we march. It is Sharon Salam, a longtime activist around child and family welfare issues and around prison issues, including the issue that got her son in prison unjustly in the Central Park case. She's the mother of Yusuf Salam. I give you Sharon Salam.
You know, I'm glad to be here to talk to you today, but I only have a few minutes. So the first thing I want to say, so I don't forget, is Trump Pence must go. Now that I've said that, let me say this. I received some extremely sad news when I heard that the statistics were showing that the United States, the sixth way to die is through police murders. That's right. Trump has said and given the police a green light to do whatever they want to do to us. They are still not being found accountable for the various things they do. The murders, the false incarceration, the lying, no accountability. We need to stop all of that, because I want you to know one thing. They've already come for me, and next they'll be coming for you. Make sure you stand up now before someone knocks on your door or kills your child. Get rid of the leader of this crew, this gang that we have in the White House, the Trump-Pence regime and all of his soldiers. They are marching in tune, one behind the other. Stand up and be counted. Let us not go back to before slavery. Let us not go back to the massacre of the Native Americans. Let's move forward. We've come too far to go back. Step up your name. Step up your count. Step up your feet. If you can't walk, drag a limb. If you have no shoes, drag a leg. But move forward. We're going on from here. We are not going back. Trump Pence must go. Go, go, go.
All right. We got to get organized to march.